dislike making hasty decisions. Lycera had been unsettled ever since the last meeting of Parliament, the meeting that had thrown the dragons into turmoil, the meeting in which Draconas had disclosed that the 2 children born to the human woman Melisande could communicate mind to mind, as could dragons. Not only that, but these humans could actually enter the minds of dragons. This was an awful, dreadful, catastrophic calamity. What's more, Draconas had told Parliament that one of their number was a traitor. One of them was feeding information to the rogue dragon Maristara and her cohort Grald. Because of this, Draconas had hidden away the 2 children, and he refused to tell anyone, even Honora, the wise elder dragon, the minister of the Parliament, where they were to be found. He'd also claimed that this same traitor had been responsible for the deaths of her father and Braun, Lycera's brother. That meeting had taken place 16 years ago. A long time by human standards, a mere eye-blink by dragon measuring. Lycera had spent those years dithering, wavering back and forth, trying to decide if she would talk to Draconas or not. For a couple of years, she thought she wouldn't. He was the walker, the dragon who took human shape to walk among humans and keep an eye on them. He had, therefore, lots of humans' images in his mind, images Lycera found disturbing and distasteful, and fascinating. It was the fascinating part that bothered her. She'd seen only a few of these images the last time he'd spoken to her, and she had since discovered that they kept cropping up in her dreams, breaking her tranquility. Try as she might, she couldn't banish them. She didn't want to see any more of them, and yet she did. Once she had made up her mind that she would talk to him. A few more years passed before she found the courage to do so. She would start to approach him, and then she would shy away and retreat back to her lair in a flutter of confusion. This made her angry, and for the next year or so she turned her anger at Draconas and blamed him as the cause of all the trouble. She knew she was being irrational. He wasn't the cause. Maristara had started it all by seizing that human kingdom and then breeding humans with dragons to produce humans with dragon magic. Lycera didn't like to admit that part. At this point, she decided that she didn't need Draconas. She would find out who the traitor dragon was on her own. Lycera's investigations were half-hearted, however, and didn't get her anywhere. The other dragons she questioned were brusque and even rude. They obviously did not want to think about any of this. They were hoping it would all go away. They shut their minds to her and shooed her off. Which brought Lycera right back to Draconas. She would talk to him. She was determined to talk to him. Boldly, trembling, Lycera reached out her colors to him, only to find that the colors of his mind were gone, as though they had been wiped away by a wet sponge. Lycera crouched in the empty hall of Parliament, and for the first time she began to be afraid, not only for Draconas, but for herself and all of Dragonkind. Honora felt true regret that she had to kill Draconas. Of all the walkers who had sacrificed their dragon form to take on the illusion of a human, Draconas had been the best. One of the hazards of being a walker, of living among humans, was that the dragon tended to either become too human, in which case he forgot the reason he'd been sent to walk among humans in the first place, or he remained too dragon, in which case he moped and pouted and whined about having to put up with the inconveniences of being human. Draconas had been the first to separate the 2 halves of his being, maintaining a firm division between the dragon and the human. Even now, though it appeared that he was acting for the humans, siding with the humans, and protecting the humans, Honora knew better. Draconas was doing what he was doing because he firmly believed he was helping his own kind. Admirable. Mistaken, but admirable. She stood, masked by illusion, inside the building where she'd set her trap for Draconas. Watching him from the shadows, she pondered the idea of letting him live. She could try to explain to him that he was wrong, hoping he'd see reason. She discarded that thought with a regretful sigh. Draconas's asset had become his liability. He was working hard to keep humans and dragons at peace, as they had been since the first human had raised himself up off all fours. Draconas would never understand why that peace had to end, and Honora knew he could never be made to understand. He had to die. Draconas had his back to her. She'd been spying on him from the moment he'd entered the abandoned building. He was here to set a trap for the dragon Graald, the master of Dragonkeep. Graald, disguised in his own stolen human body, was heading this direction. Graald and Honora were in contact, the colors of their minds blending, though not very harmoniously. Honora was thinking of her own lofty goals. Graald was thinking of vengeance. But what could you expect? Graald was a dragon of the baser sort. He did not come from one of the noble families of Dragonkind, who had ruled the world for centuries. In human terms, Graald was a peasant. He'd been brought into this conspiracy by Maristara, who had chosen him because he was a peasant, rough and crude, and not overly educated. The elder female dragon, Maristara, had formed a theory, a brilliant theory, that if dragons and humans bred, they would produce offspring that would look human, but would be capable of using dragon magic. Honora remembered how shocked and appalled she'd been at first hearing Maristara's proposal, brought to her in secret. She'd been adamantly opposed to it. Not only did it break all the laws of Dragonkind, it could prove dangerous for dragons. Creating humans with magical powers, it was not to be considered. When Maristara had defied her and seized a human kingdom in order to begin her experiments, Honora had vowed that she would do everything in her power to stop her. Time passed. The dragons, with their usual ineptness and inability to make decisions, bungled any chance of halting Maristara. The experiments in breeding proceeded, and went far better than even Maristara had hoped. Sadly, as time passed, Honora had come to see things Maristara's way. These humans with the dragon magic in their blood proved to be so powerful that they intimidated lesser humans. Thus, they made perfect rulers. And because these humans had dragon blood in their veins, they were easily manipulated by the dragons. Dragons ruled the half-dragon humans, who ruled the humans. Perfect all around. Maristara needed a male dragon to start the breeding program with the human females of Seth. She didn't dare choose one of the males of the noble houses, for fear word would get out. She selected a male from a family of lesser dragons, a young male, aggressive and ambitious and cruel. His name was Graald. She taught Graald the secret of ripping the heart out of a living human body and taking over that body, making it his own, a task far less complicated and time-consuming than casting the supreme illusion spell that changed Draconas into a human. Unlike Maristara, who used the human bodies she took to disguise her true form, Graald usurped the human bodies, giving them his name and taking over their personalities. He was on his 6th human right now, and this was his favorite. He had found something better, however, and he was looking forward eagerly to taking over the next body, that of his own son. Before that could happen, Honora and Graald had to kill Draconas. who had done everything in his power